Hi guys. We're going to practice multiplication of decimals and division of decimals today. What you're going to do is we're going to treat those decimals as if they were whole numbers. That way we are not confused about what our numbers should be. Okay. So here it is, one example. If I have a problem and I say, well, I need to multiply 21 and 3/10 by 6 and 1/10. So what I'm going to do is very simple. I'm going to use my box method for multiplication so that I don't get confused about anything because I know how to break down a number. So it's so much easier. But instead of doing the 3/10 as a decimal, I'm going to write it down with words and the number. So look at this. I'm going to break down this number. I'm going to say 20 plus 1, that's 21. And then I'm going to do 3/10. So my box will have this right here. Okay, 21 and 3/10. Then I'm going to multiply by, I'm going to create this, 6 and 1/10. 1/10. And that way, every time I multiply by my 10th, I know that I'm adding tenths, okay? And then I'm going to have to figure out how many tenths I have, and that will make it a lot easier for me. Now, remember that when I write a tenth, and if it's 51 tenths, so if it's 51 tenths and I'm writing it, remember that the last digit has to be in the tenths place. So if this is in the tenths place, then the 5 is a whole number in the place value chart. So if it's 51 tenths, it really means that it's 5 wholes and 1/10. So we need to remember that when we're doing this. When I'm multiplying, I would do my whole number first. So I'm going to do 6 times 2 is 12. And there's a 0, so I need to add a 0. Okay? So I do the whole number, I do my multiplication facts, the basic facts, and then I add zeros if there are zeros there either on this side or on this side. If I had a 60, then there will be 2 zeros, and then this answer would have 2 zeros, okay? 6 times 1 is 6. That's pretty simple. And then 6 times 3 is 18. But remember, it's not just 18, it's 18 tenths. Which also would mean that it's 1.8, right? When we put it in decimal form. Now, this is my 1/10. So if I have 20 times 1, that means I have 20 tenths. If this is 1 times 1, then I have 1/10. Now, I'm treating it as a whole, but at the end, I'm writing that word. 3 times 1 is 3. But it's 3/10. So that way I know which ones are my tenths, right? I don't have to do anything special. I already multiplied, and it was so quick to multiply because I know my facts or I have my cheat sheet. I just need to make sure that I'm using the word. And then I need to add. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add here to the side. I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to add my numbers. I'm going to add my first number, which was 120, plus my 6, plus my 18 tenths, which means that there is a decimal, and the tenths place is on this side of the decimal. So the 8 goes here, and the 1 has to go in front of it. So I have 18 tenths. So I'm ready to add up this side, and that tells me wherever I don't have a number, I just put zeros. 8. 6 plus 1 is 7. Remember that decimal has to stay in the same spot. Then I have 2, then I have 1. So I have 127 and 8 tenths just on this side. Okay? So now I'm going to do my bottom side and add up and see how much I have there. I have 20 tenths. Ooh, 20 tenths. That means I have 0 tenths. I have 2 wholes because 1 whole is 10 tenths and I have 2 20 tenths. I have another tenth. So I just have 1 and I have 3 tenths. So when I add it up, I have 2 and 4 tenths. So I'm going to add this over here with my other extras from the top and the bottom. So top and bottom. And I'm going to add my decimals. 8 times, remember to line up your decimal too, to make sure that you're adding them correctly, okay? 8 plus 4 is 12. Then I carry a 1. 1 plus 7 plus 2 is 3. The 2 comes down and the 1 comes down and my decimal stays in the same spot. So the answer should be 123 and 2 tenths. So if I use the box method, I can see very clearly that my tenths are there, okay? Now, some of you like to use the algorithm and you may have forgotten to leave your spacer when you're going down. Okay, some of the rules about multiplication with decimals is that if I'm doing the algorithm, I'm going to see how many, let's pretend this is it, how many decimals I have. So whatever answer I get after I do the multiplication has to match the number of decimals that I have in my problem, okay? So if I had 4, I'm going to actually do the 4 and 3 at the bottom. So I'm going to do 4 and 5, 6 times 4 and 3. And this is the only time that you don't need to line up your decimals, which is interesting. If you want to line up your decimals, you can. You just need to put zeros wherever there's a space, okay? So I would treat this multiplication just like I did before. I would do the 3 times 6, 3 times 5, 3 times 4. And I would treat it as if there's no decimals. But remember, there are 1, 2, and 3 numbers that are decimals. I have a tenth, a hundredth, and a tenth. So I have 3 decimals, 3 numbers that are decimals. So then I can go ahead and treat this as multiplication. Do it like I do my multiplication. I'm just not doing it. I'm just putting numbers. I'm leaving my spacer. Then I do my multiplication and then I add them up and I have a bunch of numbers. Okay. But remember, I have 3 decimals. So that means that when I go from front to back, I need to count 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3, and that's where my decimal goes. Okay. So that's a quick rule. So you treat your whole operation like whole numbers, but then you count how many decimals you have, and then you just add them at the end, back to front. When you are dealing with division of decimals, a lot of you guys are using the algorithm, the long division, and that's fine. I don't really care what you do. You can go back to watching the video about division, which is the box